Welcome to Women Empower Active, an initiative started by UR Sportswear to empower women to find their own active adventure. I'm your host, Jacalyn Gross. Today, we are going to do an update on my situation as far as getting back into activity again, which is very exciting. And then we have a special guest coming on, Emily Johnston. She actually was interviewed on Women Empower Active earlier, and I will put that episode in the show notes for you to check out if you're interested in hearing more about her story. But today we're going to focus more on her role as a trainer and how she deals with helping her athletes come back from injury and how she coaches them through it. And then she's also just had a baby, so how she's felt coming back from that as well is going to be an interesting perspective as a trainer. I hope you enjoy this episode. There's a lot of great pointers and it's very open and vulnerable, and I hope that you can connect to it as well. So first I want to go into like how I'm doing. I have recently, as of 2 weeks, I think, had my drains removed. I know last time I was like, I'm going to have them removed in 2 days, but that was not the case. I ended up having a drain in for almost a month. So that really put a damper on my active lifestyle. The thing is that like when you have a drain in, especially the location of mine being in the front area, it rubbed like all the time. So I would go for a hike and I'd have to like hold my body in a certain way so it wouldn't rub. And it just was not like, I couldn't go like bike or elliptical or do anything really. I really had walking as my only option. It was really hard to feel like I did something, like I'm so used to being able to like push myself and not having my body limit me like that. I mean, I know I'm very privileged in that way, but I just haven't had that issue. And it really changed my perspective on myself. And so I was working through that. I was hiking with people. I went a lot of hikes with my friend Ursula, who has been very supportive and helpful in this situation. But it just felt like I couldn't really push my body. I couldn't do crunches or anything like that. So it just felt like I was just like, my body didn't feel like my own, and it felt very like foreign to me. So the surgeon said that I could run. So like that day, the day that I got them removed, I ran 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off for like 15 minutes total, something's like little like that. But that feeling of being able to run was like so incredible, but also it felt so weird. I can't even explain it. Like I felt like, okay, my body is moving in such a weird way right now. I didn't feel in sync. I just felt like all over the place. So I just want to say this too, like anybody who wanted to like start running or start doing anything, like if it feels weird, like that's totally normal. And I've been running for almost 20 years, and I think running is hard when you start it again. Like I do. I've run ultra marathons and I've run, just consistently 50 to 60 mile weeks. Not having that extra like mileage and just coming like off the couch, running's hard. So if you're trying to do it, just know that it will be hard, and it's a little bit easier for me because like I know it's going to be hard, but I know that there's like a amazing payoff at the end of it being hard. But if it's hard for you and you're just starting out, like you don't know that running can take you so many cool places and so many adventures, and it's going to feel bad for a while. So stick with it if you're just trying it out. Because even coming back from that, I just felt like that first run, I put my shoes on. I was so excited. But even just running those like 2 minutes, I felt like it was just like I was very aware of my body and what it was doing, and that what it was doing was not right. I felt also very self-conscious of my body and like what other people were seeing. Like if somebody sees me right now, can they tell that this feels so weird to me? That kind of thing, just like running by traffic and feeling very self-conscious. And then having, because it was like a walk run, so having to walk, it felt, it was like, oh, I could keep going, but just knowing that that was there and all the hills felt really hard and I was breathing really hard and um yeah, you feel like very much that everybody's looking at you and they definitely are not. But I just want to share that experience just in case other people are feeling that way too, especially starting out. So that happened. So running is hard, period. And if you are trying something new, it's going to be hard and awkward. So keep that in mind. And so I've been run walking. I started with like 15 minutes total of run walking. And so I would like run for 2 minutes, walk for 2 minutes, run for 2 minutes, walk for 2 minutes. And then I was running for 3 minutes, walking for 2 minutes, running for 3 minutes. And then I was running for 5 minutes, walking for a minute, running for 5 minutes, walking for, like, and then I was doing 10 minutes. And that's where I am right now is running 10 minutes and then walking 45 seconds. So slowly but surely growing as far as like what I'm doing running wise, but I'm still gaining fitness, and it's been a process that I've been working through. I've also added in lifting as well. So I'm lifting and running and doing abs, starting to feel more like myself. And it's just been a process of pushing myself, but not too hard. So I I really feel great about the fact that I'm running, but it's also like I'm not that fit right now. So also embracing that part of myself too. And then also the in-between phase. In-between phase is so hard. I call that, well, I should define this. It's like in between being fit and unfit. It just is like that you start to build muscle, you're starting to feel good, but you still just do not feel totally in sync. And it's like the frustrating part of getting fit is that you just kind of have that period of time where you're like, okay, now I have muscle and I still feel just not 100% sure of like how my body is. Just doesn't totally feel like my body still. Like it just feels kind of in shape. A little bit of this is like that I've been struggling with is just like, okay, like muscle builds and there's still fat on top of my muscle and it doesn't look necessarily like it did. And like just embracing that part that it's like I know that I'm going to get more fit and I'm going to feel like myself. I'm going to get there. I believe that I can do it. And but the in between phase is tough. And it's like my clothes aren't fitting properly. I'm like, okay, the last time I wore these pants, I could button them. Like it's just that really in between being fit and unfit, and you're still kind of transitioning, you're evolving into a fit person. Um, and so I think too, I'm sure there's like a little bit of my body insecurity, issues in there too. Like I'm sure this is not all real. I'm sure some of it is just like maybe these pants always fit this way. I'm just perceiving myself as bigger right now. So I'm well aware that this could also be all in my head. And I don't think necessarily that getting to that point where like um of fitness where you should say like I'm like a certain size, so now I'm fit. Like I realize that's true. I just still have this like body dysmorphia type of perspective on my own self that I don't have on other people. I don't put on other people, but I definitely put it on myself. And so I'm like working through that to be like, okay, it's okay that I look like this. I'm still as valuable. Kind of like that mantra, but I don't, like, I definitely don't put that on others. I definitely just am very, very hard on myself. something that I've really been struggling with is now that I have a scar on my stomach. And especially when I was like, I had the drain still in, it's the where the drain was is some place on my body that I really already had some like issues with. I'm not sure if I don't want to give anybody any anxieties, but I always like have to have my pant like waistband in a certain spot on my stomach. Otherwise, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And that spot where the drain was inserted is right where I like to put my pant like waistband because it made me like feel more comfortable. Again, this is my weird body issues. And so I had to adjust and like put my waistband lower because I couldn't put it there. And now I actually feel a little bit more comfortable about my body in that way where I don't feel like I need to have my waistband in a certain spot, which is growth. That's awesome. But I also have a scar right there, and I'm feeling so self-conscious about it because it's in a place where I already felt like it's just like years and years and years of body just dysmorphia of like looking at myself and saying like that's where my quote unquote like fat was. And so now because it's kind of like this ugly scar or my perception of it being ugly, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my body looks bad. Like it looks um not as I'm not as good as I was. And so I've been working on feeling better about it. But it's still like something that I really I mean, all of this is to say is like this is something that I really should be working on anyways. And I didn't realize I had these issues still with my body until like this whole thing happened. And now I'm like, do I really believe that I'm not as good because I have a scar? Like, is that really truly what I believe? And so I'm like trying to really kind of work through that because that's not true. It's like these little voices that you have in your head about yourself, and then what is reality. And it's going to be like a little bit of time before I fully believe that, and also like I survived this. That scar is because I survived, and so like I could have died from your appendix rupturing, but so I understand all of these things, but I still have that feeling that like, okay, you know, like there's a dimple in your stomach and now it's not as good. So working through that. I mean, I tell you this podcast is for you, but this also for me and being able to accept myself as well as I can accept others has been something that I've been working on throughout this whole entire process of interviewing active women is just being like, teach me, let me not be this way anymore. The other thing that I've been really noticing about coming back from being injured that things that I thought I like worked through was that I really wanted to like quantify all of the active work that I was doing. Like I really wanted to say, okay, I'm going to walk for an hour. If I don't walk an hour, then, that's an issue that, it's hard to explain, but if you're not trying to work towards something as far as like a race, like being active is not necessarily need to fall into a certain structured pattern. And so, you're not working on your base, like, or your speed work or, VO2 max threshold, like there's nothing that you're working towards that specific like that. There's no reason for you to have to walk for an hour. If that's your goal, that's great. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like if you're just using it for as a way to make yourself feel good or bad, that is not a good situation. It's good to have like an hour of activity goal, but the way I was doing it was that I was starting to structure even walking. I had to define it and make it like, okay, so I have to do it for a certain amount of time and I'm trying to get a certain amount of miles and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is not, it's not what you're doing. Like, you're not trying to be better at walking. You're trying to be able to run. So at a certain point, like just pushing yourself just for the sake of pushing yourself is like not really useful. It's also a way for you to say, hey, I'm not as good as I was yesterday. Like, it's never like, oh my gosh, you did an hour and 20 minutes. Great job. It's like, oh, you only did 59 minutes and 58 seconds. Like, you are a terrible person. Like I use it as a way or a tool to like measure myself daily. And I think it was like more obvious because I was like walking. So I'm like, okay, how can I make this fun? Like, how can I let go of that and start to enjoy what I'm doing as I start to gain fitness again? And that really was not something that I thought about. Like, after not running for a while, just being so sedentary, I'm like, how many times have I used exercise as a way to put other parts of my life off where I haven't pushed myself to do something because I'm instead pushing myself in a run or in a race? Like, have I let myself be less driven in other parts of my life because of trying to make myself feel better or worse because of the way that I'm racing and running? And so I really started to explore that and see if there was other things in my life that I might not be feeling totally successful in and pursuing those. And so I, don't want to give any examples right now because they're still really in the works, but there was places in my life that I really wanted to push myself further and be better in, and not just working yourself until you're tired because that is the only way that you felt like you could, you know, chase whatever you're chasing, So that was another thing that I really learned, is that like I was using this structure of exercise to hold myself back in other places of my life. This has been such a worthwhile journey for me, but I'm not to say like I'm great, I'm still working through this stuff. And then what if I start to, I still need to examine that, because even though I was still having this like thought process, I'm still like, okay, walk 0.25 of a mile more, I'm still doing that, but it was still like eye-opening as well to see that I was doing that and to kind of figure out how I could make myself feel successful in ways that were actually useful to myself. Thank you, Emily, for being here. Emily Johnston is a trainer, and I'm so excited to talk with her about coming back from an injury and having her coming back from her having a baby. So thank you for doing this, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Like, is there anything that you tend to do when you're like talking to your like the athletes that you're coaching and they're like coming back from an injury, or even like during the injury, like when they have to kind of take a step back and do, elliptical or whatever? How do you like talk to them through that?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone has a different way that they process being injured and want
Yeah.
to like act on that. So,
Mhm.
but I had a client this summer who she was preparing to hike the John Muir Trail. She plays soccer, all these things, and she knew she regularly has like an injury kind of in her groin area that will
Okay.
flare up. And so basically what we would do is kind of highlight, okay, what are the imbalance areas there? And then if we were doing any motion that would tend to like where she would feel that a little bit, we
Yeah.
would try to isolate, okay, what's happening? And then say, okay, we're going to back off from that a little bit and
Mhm.
continue to strengthen around that. And so it's a lot of like, I guess the way I talk to people about it is
Yeah.
reframing, even coaching at the gym that I coach at when I have group classes and people who maybe they're coming back from an injury, maybe they're just getting back into working out in general. But just kind of trying to show them and like the importance of taking it easy essentially in rebuilding and not pushing too hard too fast so that there's like essentially showing them like you could be injured for longer or you could take the time to heal and like slowly rebuild so that you can be stronger and go for the long haul.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you about too is like I just came back from my appendix
Yeah.
rupturing, and I was like working on like all I could do is walk essentially. Like there really wasn't
Yeah.
anything else I could do. But I found myself like trying to do the same like structure
Mhm.
things to my walking. Like I have to
Yeah.
walk an hour, it has to be, like I had to
Yeah.
do a certain amount of miles, and like I really started to like structure it out like I do my running, and in not a healthy way. I honestly like it's something I'm still working on. I'm not sure how I
Yeah.
can like not do that.
It's hard. I feel
Yeah.
coming back from any injury is hard to like be like, okay, I need to just like let go a little bit of
Yes.
where I was or what my typical pattern is when I'm in like peak training mode to be
Mhm.
able to, yeah, scale that back. And I feel like a lot of it too is trying to listen, like learning to be able to listen to your body,
Mhm.
and energy levels and some of that like just kind of tuning in to the like into like our bodies are intuitive if we listen. And
Mhm.
so trying to tune in like, okay, maybe I used to do an hour and I could get like 3.5, 4 miles in walking in an hour, but right now I need to take it slower.
Mhm.
And maybe I'm just going to do 30 minutes to start. Um, but it makes me think, I mean, that ties directly into like coming back from having a baby.
Yes.
That's how it was really, yeah, it was hard to just take it easy. And I ended up in a C-section
Mhm.
as well. And so that was like extreme abdominal surgery.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, trying to be like, okay, I need to just like chill out a little bit or it's
Mhm.
going to be more painful. Even
Mhm.
though I feel like I could do more, like my body is actually needing some more healing and rest. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I feel like it's totally just a journey. And trying to like identify when you know you're trying to push too hard and just
Mhm.
being like, nope, we're gonna just go for 15 or 20 minutes right now. And yeah,
Right. Like
yeah.
don't push until it hurts, kind of like
Yeah.
I had this one day where I walked like an hour and a half and like I ended up like really rubbing my
Oh,
stomach, and
yes.
I could bear like I was trying to get up and down and I was having issues with it, and it was like I don't know what that was where I couldn't just let it go, you know what I mean? Like I just
Yeah.
had to keep going. And so I realized that after the fact that I shouldn't have done it, but it's like, okay, well, it doesn't hurt that bad, so I could keep doing it kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But not being able to like push yourself further or like not knowing where your new like stopping point is kind of like an adjustment, which I think you probably felt similarly when had a C-section where your body is not, it's different than it was like
Yeah.
right at this moment, at least like you
Yeah.
could normally push it further,
Yeah.
but like you have to kind of make that stopping point a little bit sooner, and like
Yeah.
learning that must have been pretty hard too for you.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I tried, like, I had told myself, like, I'm not going to start running until, like, technically, typically they clear you around 6 weeks for
Mhm.
resuming exercise. And I had started walking, like, they say you can walk. So I was like, well, I'm going to walk. And so I
Yeah.
started by, like, doing down the block and
Mhm.
back. And then I was taking longer walks and pushing the stroller everywhere. And Yeah, and then I'd like just get excited. So when I hit the 6 weeks, I was like, I'm gonna wait till 8 weeks, just give me my body more recovery. But I like couldn't because I was just so excited to be like,
Yeah.
oh, and so then I'd like kind of jog a couple minutes and then walk and then jog a few minutes. I'm like, okay, that's all I need to do. That's all I'm gonna do for now. And then it was like by 9 or 10 weeks, I was like, I want to get out and go for like 2 miles and just see how that feels. And
Mhm.
yeah, just trying to like evaluate. Like I think I tried to slowly build and I think I did do that. Um, but it was still that like it was a hard mentality shift of like you can't just go out and run all day. Like you need to just do 1 mile, just do 2 miles. That's okay. That's enough.
Mhm.
Whereas it's easy to think like, oh, I need to do at least a 5K for it to
Yeah.
be an actual run for the day or something like that. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've found that too. Like even when I first started running again, like
Yeah.
I was running maybe well, I was running like 2 minutes on, like 3 minutes off or something like
Yeah.
that, like really easy. And after that, I felt like, okay, well now I gotta walk more because, I didn't do enough kind of as
Yeah.
perspective. And it is like it's totally different than like I twisted my ankle or something like that. Like
Yes.
coming, and that's why I think like similarly to what you're going or went through, like it's something that like is if fatigue inside of you, basically. Like your body
Yeah.
is tired and you have to be careful with it.
Yeah.
Much more than you normally would have. And so I
Yeah.
hadn't had an experience like that prior to that. I don't know if have you ever had a medical issue like that like
I have autoimmune stuff. So
okay,
I like
yes.
after doing too many, like if I would do too many long, like ultra distances in a
Mhm.
certain amount of time, I would just feel completely fatigued and be like just unable to feel any ability to really like push
Yeah.
myself further.
Mhm.
And so that's where I think having autoimmune helped me kind of learn to listen to my body a little bit more because I
Yes.
had pushed it so often. Um, and so I think that helped in preparing for how to come back from the C-section
Mhm.
is I had already too often pushed myself with the autoimmune beyond what I should have and
Yeah.
dealt with that extreme fatigue instead of like listening to my body and adjusting. And so, yeah, I feel like I was more prepared by the time I had a C-section to be
Mhm.
like, okay, I kind of know how to listen a little bit better or how to like ease off. But it's still, I mean, it's still like a constant mental battle when you're like, I just want to be training like fully. I want to be,
Yeah.
yeah, going all out. And even my first, I did a race, a 50K, eight
Mhm.
months postpartum, 9 months
Oh,
postpartum, maybe 9 months postpartum.
yeah.
And I had to like slow down at certain points because I realized like if any gas bubbles built up, it would press against the C-section scar and
Oh,
then it would make pain there. So I was
yeah.
like, oh, I need to go slower
Yeah.
so that I'm not causing my body extra pain in this process. And
Mhm.
like it was like learning all those little things in the midst of even after being able to train and do things of like, okay, how is my body still healing and responding and what is happening inside of me essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good point. I know it's because like something I want to get back to be able to race a 50K again.
Yeah.
Um, and it was I want to get there so bad. Like it's just like getting
Yes.
fit and feeling that again. And that's a good call to make, like that, you had to think about how that was going to affect your race later on. Like it could have been like a DNF situation,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And
you're
I
like,
was
at
like,
least I
I
want to,
just want to finish. I just want
yes.
to, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And I feel like that is a great like goal to have too. Like I feel like that might be where I go next. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out how I can push myself, and I don't know that I'll be able to get, I mean, 9 months postpartum 50K is pretty impressive. So,
Yeah.
like
And I mean, like, I really didn't do, and I think that was postpartum too. I learned that I could do low volume. So I focused more on weight training And then because of having a baby at home, it was like, I
Mhm.
don't have all the time in the world to go running all the time.
Right.
And Paul's schedule as a firefighter was like, there's a lot of days he's not home at all. And
Mhm.
so, um, I've even now, like my schedule is more of like typically two, maybe max three short runs a week. And
Mhm.
those are like under an hour typically.
Yeah.
And then one long run on like the weekend, basically.
Mhm.
And just like kind of taking back some of that really tons of cardio
Yeah.
and letting the weight training carry as well. And I think that just helped so much because then so I did a 50 miler in April. So that was
Oh, wow.
a year and 9 months postpartum.
Yeah.
So I did the 50K April of 2023 and then the 50 miler this past April. And I had no injuries. Like I felt strong the whole time,
Yeah.
but really like my longest run was 26 miles and that was like only 20 miles on a trail. And then I came home and got Daniel in the stroller and had our dog and pushed him for 6 miles.
That's so cute.
And that was the longest run I had done. And
Yeah.
other than that, it was like just doing like anywhere from 15 to 22 miles, I think, for my long runs. And I felt so strong during my 50 miler and was able to finish in my time goal and like walk the next day and carry Daniel in the backpack on my back the next day. And that's what I was like, okay, this is how I need to train is
Yeah.
like, I don't need to stress about doing all these runs every day or continuing to push because that's often too what I've noticed with my body is it's like I'll totally deplete my entire resources basically in my body, the
Mhm.
energy. I start having injuries if I'm training too much. And so figuring out like a good balance of like, okay, 2 or 3 to 4 runs a week, and then weight training like 3 times a week and really investing in that. And then on top of that, doing like, I'm just going for a hike and carrying like Daniel as a weighted pack, or I'm doing the incline treadmill at the gym as like yeah, getting that incline training there, but not
Mhm.
trying to run it so much as just getting the like, how fast can I hike on an incline? Um, yeah. And just adjusting perspective.
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even plan to talk to you about this too, but
Yeah.
like I have been thinking about this lately, which is like after I stopped running so consistently, I was feeling like I was able to like push myself in other places of my life that like
Yeah.
maybe like I didn't want to go too much into it because like it's kind of all happening right now too, but it's
Yeah.
like I didn't push myself where I was like thinking,
Mhm.
okay, I'll just do that like physically pushing myself because
Yeah.
it's easier, it's more controllable. Like,
Yeah.
I know what the outcome will be, or I mostly know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
So I noticed that like in not in like putting running aside that I started pursuing things that like really were important to me, but I just
Yeah.
had put off because either I was
Yes.
scared and it was harder, or like I just
Uh-huh.
total, I didn't have an answer for how it was gonna go, you know?
Yes.
Um, so it's really interesting to me for you to say like after and be able to like do the things with Daniel and like
Yeah.
that was part of your goal because it's still like part of your life, obviously,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
living and pushing yourself, but also having, a child or having
Yeah.
whatever, so
Yeah. And I think that is a good point of like when you're an athlete, like you're wanting to do these um athletic pursuits,
mhm.
but you have like, yeah, relationships in your life or
Yeah.
like community is so important for like mental health and just enjoying life to the fullest
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
having people around. And if you're
Yeah.
like constantly running, and there's people like I run with, but then there's also some like we're still only 2.5 years to living in Port Angeles. So it's still like slowly building up some of those
Yeah.
running community. But it's like, oh, I need to have space to connect with my other mom friends or
Mhm.
to go on a date with my husband
Mhm.
and spend time together, even just at home and as a family, that we can do family outings. And if I'm like investing everything into my training that I'm neglecting this other part of who I am in my life. And so, yeah, like I kind of wonder with injury, like tying it back,
Yeah.
if like those seasons can be such a good, like kind of restructuring and healing
Yeah.
season for us and like figuring out that perspective of like, oh yeah, how do I integrate all the pieces together? And maybe there's a better way than what I was doing before.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. That's such a great point. I also, just because you mentioned it, how did it go from jumping from a 50K to a 50 miler? Just curious.
It was great. It was so,
Okay.
I felt really good. I mean, I met quite a few people who that was their first ultra, was just jumping right into a 50 miler.
Wow.
And I was telling someone on the hike yesterday I was doing with some ladies, and I said, honestly, though, I really enjoyed having like 7 years of 50Ks under my belt of just
Mhm.
that base and knowing, okay, I feel really comfortable at this distance. And so I want to go further. So now I'm training for my first 100 miler because I just decided I need to try it
I'm
once.
so excited.
So
Where do you know which one yet?
yeah, so it's the Lake Sonoma 100 miler and it's brand new. So this will be their first year doing it. It's down in Napa Valley, California. And that's where I did my 50 miler. So I ran with some of the guys who are race directing this race and was like, okay, they were really fun. The 50 miler was really fun. That community and just vibes down there was amazing. So
Yeah.
I was like, I want to do this one. Might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh, you got me so excited.
Yeah. Well, and the course is really fun because it's like, I mean, it's lower elevation,
Yeah.
but it'll be 24,000, over 24,000 feet of gain because it's on these trails that were designed for like the Western States race. Originally
Mhm.
was a horse race. And so in wine country, there were all the owners with their horses. And
Mhm.
they were like, well, we need a trail to train on. So they developed these trails with where they could get all the elevation and the different feelings of the climbs
Wow.
on these lower elevation trails. And so
Yeah.
that's what the 50 miler had, over 10,000 feet of gain. And then this one will have over 24,000. And it's because these low elevation trails were designed to train for Western states, which is just amazing.
It's incredible. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, one other thing to mention too is when you say that you have 7 years of 50K experience, like that's huge. Like
Yeah.
so going like my coach always says, Nicole Bush always says like kind of like your historic like mileage, like if you've been
Mhm.
doing a lot of mileage, like that does help to carry you through. So if you do have like some sort
Yeah.
of like injury or you're taking a step back and doing less mileage weekly, like that does help you. Like, so
Yeah.
your body has that experience of all those 50Ks and then stepping
Yeah.
up to a 50 miler is huge.
Yeah.
But it would help. Yeah, it would definitely help you. Just in case anybody's like looking to train,
I
like
know.
that
Yeah,
history does
seriously.
help you. Yeah, it does help you.
That's what I say. Like every year of base,
Hmm.
really, it just makes a difference. Like it's our bodies remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So when like your athletes are coming back from injury, is there anything other than like restructuring their perspectives and things, like what else do you kind of like work on to get them to, I guess, let go of
Yeah.
like to just to actually step back and actually do like the cross training or whatever instead of trying to like push through injuries?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely encourage, like, if they haven't already seen a physical therapist, like
Hmm.
finding a physical therapist or chiropractor,
Yeah.
massage, like whatever extra support
Yeah.
for that. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, it's kind of that hard balance because it's like, people are adults, they're gonna do what they want to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like I often even share about like just my experience coming back
Mhm.
from a C-section of
Yeah.
like it takes time and that's okay. And like letting ourselves like invest into something else for a season. I mean, and I think part of it too is when people are coming to me with strength training,
Yeah.
they're really excited to finally like be doing strength. And
Yeah.
so then that helps give them that like motivation and we're regularly seeing each other. And so there's typically like okay, I'm like taking it easy on my hiking right now because that's what I'm noticing is flaring it up. Or if we notice like, oh, deadlifts are not feeling good for you, let's figure out something else that we can do to strengthen the muscles that aren't activating. But yeah, not a ton else.
Yeah, no, I think it's huge to have like just a person like during that period to like bounce ideas off of. And like honestly, that's like when you need the trainer the most
Yes.
is when you kind of are in that injury space, because like they can help you with other exercises you could do, or if telling you when to stop essentially, which is quite often what I need is somebody to tell me don't
exactly.
do that anymore if it feels like that.
I know. I just hired a running coach for training for my 100. And I had told her like, oh yeah, there's this race end of October I was planning to do. I was thinking I'd do it's like a 24-hour race. And she's like, well, are you stuck on that? Because then you might be too exhausted by the time your 100-miler comes. And I was like, this is why I need someone to tell me. I'm like, no, I'm not stuck on anything. I need people to tell me like, no, don't do that. Or maybe just do like half of that.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking that too, because I was like, I don't know if I'll do like a 50K right away, but I will try to put myself in something shorter because I still want that. Like, I want to compete in something, but I know it's going to take me a while to get back. 50K.
Well, and what I found really fun, I'm trying to think. So there was a relay race. It's always March now, but it was supposed to be in February, right? February 2023 as I was coming back. So that was going to be my like, okay, this will really test because it'll be 3 shorter sections of running essentially. And it ended up getting delayed to like 2 weeks before the 50K. So I was like, oh no, this is going to be like really close together. But it ended up being fine. But that was nice because it was like, okay, I'm getting that feel of like, what it feels like running. And the 50K I did was one on like our local trails where I'm like training regularly. It's not a ton of elevation gain, like a pretty rolling hill kind of course versus like a more mountainous and lots of elevation gain course. And so like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm easing into this. It's local races I'm engaging with that are pretty chill vibes. I feel like good just doing what I need to do for them. And so it was like less pressure on myself. So trying to like relieve that pressure of like, you don't need to race to be the front of the pack or anything like that. Just enjoy. Yeah.
That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. I should think about that. Like if a relay race or just like letting myself like get into a trail race that like maybe like mid distance in there, because I feel like if I put myself into 50K, it's a lot of pressure to be like, okay, I'll feel great the entire time. Like,
oh totally.
Yeah, even in my best training, like I'll not feel 100%. Like I can do it sometimes, and I feel like it's going to be pretty hard to just like put myself back in that situation.
I feel like doing some 25K is like just aiming for that to start could be really good. And like less elevation where you're like, okay, first I'm going to just do one that I know doesn't have a ton of gain. And then maybe I'll try one that has a little more. And then I can up my distance further. But just getting those under there. And then it's that fun environment too, where you just, you have people, you have aid stations.
Maybe work on like my transitions instead, like getting fuel and stuff like that. Like, oh, this is my goal today.
The goal is to figure out my feelings. So that's
that's a great
and avoid with abdominal surgery. It's like I need to make sure whatever I'm eating and drinking is not causing additional gas, because then I know that builds up and creates additional pain.
And then did you have anything you wanted to plug or plug your website?
My website is mountainrisecoaching.com, just all spelled out. And my Instagram as well is just Mountain Rise Coaching, but mountain is shortened to MTN. Rise Coaching. And then I'll plug too. So I work for a nonprofit called Atlas Free, which works in the anti-trafficking space, and we do adventure philanthropy. So that's what I was doing yesterday. It was a freedom hike, where these women had been, and it's for men too, but this group happened to be all women, and fundraising throughout their training season for anti-trafficking work. And so their hike, for most of them, this was like the longest and hardest thing they had ever done, which is really always so special to be a part of. But we have these hikes every summer, and then we also have DIY adventures where people can take any adventure and use it as a fundraiser to raise awareness and raise funds in the fight against trafficking. So just trying to get the word out there of like, we can, yeah, like for me, it's like I want to elevate some of my adventures and like use them for good, other than just because I love them, but like using them to raise awareness about this issue that's happening everywhere and we don't necessarily see it. But yeah.
That's incredible. I'm definitely always following you and seeing your work, and I can't imagine what that would be like to just be with people like trying their hardest.
Yeah,
I bet that's so cool.
it's powerful.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
a great work.
yesterday, yeah, there were these two women in the back and they just kept going the whole time, like a little bit slower than the rest of the group, but they were on a mission, and they, at the end when we did our debrief, were sharing their why. And yeah, just that like mindset of like, this isn't about me. And yeah, some of them had some experience where they're like, I've been in the shoes where I could have been exploited, and I now think about, and I'm grateful that there's opportunities and places for women who are being exploited to go, but also the prevention spaces as well. And it's just such a like incredible place and such an honor to get to hear those stories and see people push themselves in ways they've never pushed themselves.
I'll do my plugs, which aren't as cool as yours, or meaningful. Meaningful. You can follow me personally. That's at Jacalyn Gross, JACALYNGROSS. You can check out UR Sportswear. That's the letter U, the letter R, Sportswear on all social platforms. If you are listening to this and want to watch the video version, you can go to UR Sportswear's YouTube channel and subscribe. Both the podcast and video version were edited by me and produced by Jeremy Canaria. Thank you, Emily, for being here. I really do appreciate it. It was awesome speaking with you again. And I will put Emily's episode about her active journey in the show notes so that you can take a listen to that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.